when I moved into my new apartment 8 months ago, all I wanted was quiet. Not that empty, oppressive quiet, but the kind that gives you back your breath, that clears your mind, that doesn't demand fake smiles. After breaking up with Martin, I was drained from all the attention, the forced affection, the conversations going in circles. I was never really popular, not the type to laugh at inside jokes or talk loud in groups. I'm more of an observer. I hide behind a strict routine, and maybe that's why, when I found that ad for a room to rent on some random forum, I replied in 2 minutes flat. The surprise started when I met Hudson Blake, 2 words that completely changed the vibe of that place. He opened the door with a smile that seemed to shine even on cloudy days. 2 years older than me, tattooed arms, stubble, and eyes that didn't look away. It was a kind of charisma I didn't immediately trust. But something about him felt sincere, a sort of calm that tried to break through my defenses without asking permission. I said I was an assistant at a downtown auto shop, fixed engines in the morning and went to automotive design college at night. That pretty much killed any chance of a social life. He laughed and said he delivered buckets of paint and bags of cement all over the state. It's my free gym. He chuckled, shrugging casually. I smiled, half out of politeness, half because he really had something magnetic. We've shared the apartment without issues ever since. He called me Mr. Serious, and I'd roll my eyes. We moved at a weird pace, him, a samba rhythm, me, silent instrumental. And yet, it worked. I guess, without realizing it, I started looking forward to his presence. The way he'd burn rice because he got distracted singing in the hallway. The way he'd take off his shoes before stepping into my room to ask to borrow my charger. Small, silly things, but they became almost household rituals. Still, it never went beyond that. It was a shared space, 2 parallel lives with zones I'd never dare to cross. Or so I thought. What you hear here is just the beginning. The full, unfiltered stories with all the details you can imagine are available now. Check the link in the description right now. Leave a like if you've ever felt that quietness with someone was louder than any crowd, and subscribe to keep up with everything else that's coming. The apartment was in an old neighborhood, with gray buildings and flickering streetlights at night. But there was a certain charm in the details. The living room was bathed in golden morning light that streamed through the dusty window. The floor still creaked near the kitchen, and the walls had marks from previous tenants. The routine was simple. Hudson woke up before me, always singing some country song, the kind that sticks in your head and haunts you all day. I, on the other hand, got up later. Quiet. Quick shower, strong black coffee, burnt toast. I'd head straight to the shop and get back by 6, smelling of grease and bone-tired. Sometimes he'd already be home, sprawled on the couch in some impossible position, Netflix playing whatever he probably wasn't watching. Other times, he hadn't come back yet. I'd hear his key turn around 9 and pretend to be asleep to avoid talking. It's not that I didn't like him. It's that I didn't know what to do with his presence. He was loud, cheerful, the type who bursts into a room like a ray of sunshine. I was the corner of shadow. But, even at extremes, we coexisted. Silent rituals, like doing the dishes without discussing it, or him randomly bringing home a pizza just because this pepperoni and pickle one screamed your name. Nights were the peak of peace. Each in our own room, TV low or listening to music. Even separated by thin walls, I felt a strange closeness between us. As if by describing our day at dinner, even if it was just 3 sentences, we left a little bit of our own silence with the other. Eventually, this started to take root emotionally. I noticed the small gestures, when he realized I was stressed and left chocolate on the counter, or when he showered first and didn't take long, just because he knew I hated waiting. Hudson was the gentlest cohabitation I'd ever had, and that was terrifying. That week seemed endless. A client complaining about the quote, a car that came back 3 times for repairs, trouble delivering a college project on time, and my knee, which burned with pain all day. I could barely climb the stairs when I got home. I literally threw my backpack on the floor before collapsing onto the couch. Hudson was there as always, sitting in a loose t-shirt, messing with his phone. He didn't even ask if I was okay. He just looked at me and said, "You're creaking like an old door. Turn around. I'll help you." I laughed, a bit weakly. "Thanks, but I don't have health insurance if you break my spine." He got up, went to the kitchen, came back with a bottle of lavender oil, probably from his ex who used to live there, and stood behind the couch. "Just be still. Trust me." There was something in his eyes at that moment. Calm. Taking care of me as if nothing was absurd. I gave in. He pressed my shoulders with precision and lightness. First the right, then the left. His fingers warm, the perfume mixed with lavender and sweat. It was too intimate, but I couldn't pull back. The pain was being extracted like steam. The tension melted away. He massaged as if my body was saying everything I couldn't manage to speak. At some point, he ran his fingers down my spine. The touch was firm, but gentle, not sexual. Yet there was a tenderness beyond any common friendship. I closed my eyes. I couldn't help a low sigh, half relief, half pure surrender. "Better?" he asked, his voice low. "Yeah," I murmured. "Better than a lot of things." He was silent for a few seconds, his hands still on me, and then he laughed, nervously. "Good, otherwise I'd have to charge you." It was a joke, but it didn't sound like one. There, something shifted between us. He leaned his weight on the edge of the couch beside me. We stayed there, just the two of us, sharing silence. But it was a different silence now. There were questions in it. No answers yet, but something had begun. After the massage, we kept living the same way. At least, that's what I tried to convince myself. The difference now was what happened in his eyes, and the way, every time he passed by me in the kitchen, his shoulder made sure to brush mine. I started noticing more everything that had always been there. The way he took clumsy notes in an old notebook to remember every delivery he had that day, or how he hummed while running his fingers through his hair. No mirror needed. I started listening more to his stories, and he, without realizing it, listened to me too. We started sharing more than just space. We truly began sharing time. One night, I stayed up late studying in the living room. Hudson appeared with 2 cups of tea and handed one to me without saying a word. "Is this tea?" "Passion fruit. And relax." I read the label. "It won't kill you." I gave a small smile and took it. He flopped down beside me, threw his legs over the table and fiddled with the TV remote. "Were you always so quiet? Were you always so inquisitive?" He laughed and said he didn't know how to deal with silence. But that with mine, it was different. "Your silence says more than most people I know." That kind of thing. It got to me. I'd carry simple phrases like that for days, as if they were entire books. We started sharing some chores, even without planning. I'd clean the bathroom, he'd dry the floor. I'd cook on Tuesdays, he'd make dinner on Saturday with that bizarre recipe for pasta with tuna and caramelized onions. It was in that simplicity that the danger lay. We were becoming domesticated, intimately domesticated. More and more I waited to hear the sound of his key in the door. Everything seemed to be slipping out of control in a calm, imperceptible, and therefore dangerous, way. I started feeling too much. I wanted more. More of the accidental touch, more of the shared silence, more of the constant presence. But I'd always been a coward about anything involving emotion, and fear was almost a comfort. I didn't know where the moderate kindness of a generous person ended, and real affection began. More than once I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, thinking of writing something. A text, maybe, with words playing hide and seek. "I don't know what's going on. Do you feel the same way? Are we overthinking this, or is it just friendship?" I never wrote. I never asked. That's when his phone vibrated, one of those late afternoons when he'd left it on the table while he showered. The screen lit up. "Parker, missing your smell." Ice flooded my chest the same way it floods pipes in an unforgettable winter. Slow, silent, and fatal. Parker. Who was Parker? And that heart next to the name? What did this do to what we were building here? He came back to the living room with wet hair, the smell of soap filling the air. He sat on the couch and noticed my gaze. "You okay?" I shook my head, but I'd already pulled away again. Unintentionally, uncontrollably. The next few days were strange. I created distance. I started leaving earlier in the morning, having dinner after his usual time, pretending to nap when he arrived, and he noticed. But, unlike what I expected, he didn't try to force a conversation. Maybe because he was protecting himself too. Or, worse, maybe there was nothing to protect. And there, inside that half-warm, half-cold house, I began to face truths I didn't want to look at head-on. Hudson maybe didn't care at all about our shared silence. Maybe I was just deluding myself, but it was too early to be sure, and too late to leave unscathed. It all happened without me realizing it, like a gear turning slowly, almost imperceptibly, until the moment I could no longer pretend the tension between us was purely circumstantial. There was emotion there, there was desire, but there was also fear. Fear of destroying the comfort we'd built. We were home. It was a Tuesday night. It was raining, but not those movie rains that appear as a backdrop for a plot twist. It was just a rhythmic, soft drizzle. No spectacle. The gentle sound of drops hitting the window grate served almost as a background track, while I lay on the living room rug, laptop on my lap, my college project stuck again. He appeared from his room with a bowl of popcorn and 2 sodas. He sat on the couch and was silent for a while, watching something on TV. I wanted to comment on something, ask why he was so quiet, but I couldn't find an opening. I no longer knew who he was with me, let alone who I was with him. Suddenly, he lowered the volume and called my name. Just my name. Deep. Almost waited. "Sit here," he said, patting the couch beside him. I hesitated for milliseconds, but I got up. I settled beside him, maintaining an uncertain distance between his body and mine. We didn't know if that was the distance of friends, of strangers, or of people who were afraid to touch. He seemed to think internally before saying anything, and then he let it out. "You have every right to be weird with me, and I probably did mess things up, but I need you to know I wasn't playing with you." The way he said that broke me a little. Hudson was too spontaneous to measure his words, and now, standing there, nervous, stirring the popcorn bowl like someone looking for a way out among the kernels, he didn't seem like the same laughing guy from before. "Parker?" I let out, more like an instinctive whisper than a provocation. He nodded, slowly. "He's a piece of old baggage. We talk sometimes, but I'm not with him. Not really. I just hadn't had the courage to end it." I looked away. "And what do you have with me?" He didn't answer immediately, but his body turned toward me, and his eyes, those restless eyes, which usually avoided intense moments, held mine steadily this time. "I have doubt. I have desire. I have fear of what I feel and what you feel. But more than anything, I want to be close to you, even when we're silent. Especially when we're silent." In that moment, the air felt heavier than any physical weight I'd ever carried at the shop. I could feel my heart beating in my throat, in my ears, in my chest, as if my whole body was just pulsation. He extended his hand, slowly, like someone offering peace, or forgiveness, or a chance. I closed my eyes just for an instant, and when I opened them again, all the silence we had saved exploded in a small gesture. The tips of my fingers touched his, and there we stayed. A discreet, shy touch, but one that said more than any rehearsed phrase. And then he came. His lips brushed my cheek first, as if asking permission. The scent, a mix of cheap soap and the massage oil from that night, enveloped me like a living memory. Our faces met halfway, and so did our bodies. The kiss started hesitantly, like someone groping their way through a dark room, but it soon found rhythm, texture, urgency. There was no music, no dramatic line. There was just his taste, and the warmth, the surrender, the unsaid, the fear slowly melting away. In that touch, everything that was uncertainty turned into passion. There was intensity, but there was also care, a kind of desire that doesn't tear, it just stitches from within. It's hard to describe what came next using words, because it wasn't purely physical. It was more. Something that happened between contained gestures and insistent glances, between the sleight of hands that seemed to draw maps on each other. The world outside? Silenced. Forgotten. There was only the quiet of our breath, the precise touches as if between skin and touch there was its own language. He guided me to my room without haste, without urgency. His hand lingered for an absurd amount of time just holding mine, and that, just that, set me ablaze. The lights off allowed the night to enter through the curtain gaps. My room never seemed so different. Amidst the mess, the shirt on the chair, the pile of books pressing on the table, everything was now sacred. Because he was there, making everything more alive just by being. Hudson touched me like someone restoring something broken, as if every part of my body he allowed himself to reach was a silent conversation. He kissed my neck slowly, mapped my ribs, my waist, as if he wanted to memorize the way. I wanted to run, not from him, from myself, from the surrender, from what that moment represented, but I couldn't. The warmth of his body was an inevitable invitation to what I had always denied. We lay side by side, and he slowly ran his fingers over my arm, as if saying, "I'm here," without needing to open his mouth. Our kiss, once anxious, was now whole. He'd kiss, stop, look at me, eyes drowned in a kind of affection that only builds with coexistence, with days and nights blurring. This kind of touch, it wasn't casual, it was intimate in the deepest, most terrifying sense of the word. My hands wandered over his back, along the lines of his spine, over the crumpled sheet between our bodies. We kissed as if every second was new learning, as if it was more than pleasure. It was redemption. There was no rush, no plans, nothing rehearsed. It was as if, for an impossible-to-measure time, all the places that hurt inside me had found a pause. Hudson enveloped me with his body as if he heard me completely, and I responded with gestures, with small tremors, with the surprise of realizing I was also capable of giving and receiving. Every sigh was a yes, every touch, a confession. It was at the end, with him lying face down beside me, his hand intertwined with mine, that I felt something between happiness and vertigo. Like when you climb very high and realize how far away the ground has become. I knew there was no turning back, no more pretending. I woke up before him, and for a few seconds, everything felt light. The sun hadn't fully passed the window yet, but it was already painting golden hues over his skin, from his bare shoulder to his slightly covered hip. I watched in silence, not out of shyness, but out of reverence. It was beautiful to see someone like that, surrendered, peaceful. The previous night replayed in my memory detail by detail, the taste, the sounds, the touch, the look. As if my body had registered more than my mind could actually process. I wanted to believe that changed everything. And in a way, it did. But it wasn't a ready-made happy ending. It was the construction of something different, possible, delicate. When Hudson woke up, he turned to me with a lazy smile. We reached out our fingers to each other, that already habitual touch of those who recognize each other in the simplest gesture. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I am. Just scared this isn't real," I confessed. He was silent for a moment, then replied, "It was the most real thing I've lived in a long time." We spent the morning acting as if we'd lived this every week. Shared breakfast, comments about the shower water temperature, butter lipstick stains on the bread. But something still was different. A slight caution in our gestures. A hesitation in how our eyes sought each other when they met. A "now what?" lingering between the lines. In the days that followed, things changed. A little. And that caused an unexpected knot inside me. Hudson still laughed loudly on weekend mornings. Still burned the rice. Still turned the house key with the same flamboyant flair as always. But there was an attention in the way he looked at me. As if he was waiting for something. Or holding something he didn't know how to deliver. And maybe we were both like that. Afraid to mess too much and dismantle this fragile balance that brought us here. That same afternoon, I decided to go out and clear my head. I went to the small park at the end of our street, sat under that tree where kids always played ball, and let the air in. I closed my eyes and tried to understand what I was feeling. My body still held his memory, the smell, the touch, but my heart, that remained full of questions. What did we have now? Something that could blossom? Or another story that promises but doesn't deliver? And worse, was I ready to deal with the answer? At that moment I realized how much I needed to look at myself, and not just at him. Because maybe the problem wasn't even Hudson. Maybe the biggest challenge was allowing myself to feel without thinking I needed to run every time something got too close. But I knew. After that night, nothing would ever be the same, if it ever was. I should have seen it coming. The calm after all that was almost threatening. During that week, we tried to live as if nothing had happened, as if the night our bodies met had been just that, a momentary break in routine. But the truth is, everything had changed. Even the silence between us felt different. It had a strange taste, like a song you know, but now it sounds off-key. Hudson kept trying. He looked at me with the same care, sometimes with an involuntary tenderness that broke down my defenses. But there was a hesitation in how he dealt with me, as if something inside him was still divided. It was on Thursday night, in the middle of a dinner made of leftovers and few words, that I couldn't hold it in anymore. I closed the rice container, pushed my plate away, and stared at him. Are we going to talk, or are we going to pretend for how much longer? Hudson stopped what he was doing. He didn't even blink. He just slowly put down his cutlery, as if each metal touching the other was a step towards the truth. You want to talk? Then speak. I'm here. I took my time. Is Parker still there? Or is it just what's left of him in you? The question came out calmer than I felt saying it, but it hurt. It hurt because I already knew the answer, or at least, part of it. Hudson took a deep breath, ran a hand over the side of his face. No, he's not there anymore. But the memory is. The guilt of not having resolved things properly is. And there's fear. Fear of messing up again. With you, or with myself. I was silent for a moment, shame darkening my face. Then, I looked into his eyes and blurted out a single sentence. Then maybe the problem was never him. It was your indecision. He held his breath, as if he didn't expect to hear that so simply. He nodded, lowering his eyes like someone acknowledging a debt. I like you, Elliot. I really do. Maybe more than I know how to show. But that's not enough, is it? I finished. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. We became strangers in a matter of seconds. From bodies intertwined at 3 in the morning to guardians of increasingly heavy silences. There was no point in making coffee, faking jokes, taking out the trash to lighten the mood. Everything was said, and what wasn't now seeped through the corners of our coexistence. 2 days later, Hudson started packing some things. It wasn't dramatic at all. No ripped boxes, no thrown suitcases, just a gradual change. First, his bathroom shelf was empty. Then, the books disappeared from the living room shelf. I watched all of this with a numb calm. There was no more anger, just an emptiness punctuated by affection and grief. For what we were, for what we didn't have the courage to be. On his last day in the apartment, we found some excuse to go out, to buy light bulbs, if I remember correctly. We talked like old acquaintances, avoiding stepping on still warm memories. We came back, ate dinner in silence, and he went to bed early. When I woke up the next day, his bedroom door was already open, empty. Too organized, absurdly clean, and on the nightstand, a crumpled piece of paper with my initial folded in the corner. I picked it up with trembling hands, sat on the bed, and opened it. I know I messed up moments that could have become history, but thank you for every second by your side. You taught me more than you imagine. I hope you find someone who stays. No commas, no question marks. H. I closed the note calmly. I didn't cry, but a part of me left with him. For weeks, his footsteps were still in the house. In the smell of washed shirts, in the 2 glasses on the shelf, in the silly joke written on the fridge whiteboard. But with time, I got used to it, and I went back to myself. I went back to my own leftovers, to my own fresh start. It was then, on a quieter than usual Sunday afternoon, that I got a notification. Miles Cooper, an old acquaintance from high school. We'd exchanged glances at a bakery months ago, but only now did he decide to strike up a conversation by message. Saw you still live in town. Want to grab coffee sometime? I replied, yes. Not because he was a promise of something new, but because I was now whole enough to listen to someone, even if it was silence. And that was the first step back to myself. These past few weeks taught me more about myself than all the previous years combined. I realized that there's a kind of love that isn't born when 2 people choose each other, but when at least one of them allows themselves to be true in front of the other. I was true, as much as I could, as much as I endured. Hudson gave me a lot. He taught me that affection can come in the form of a carefree massage, undercooked pizza at 3 in the morning, or a silly laugh over a bad TV show. But he also showed me that not everything that starts needs to continue, because sometimes growing means letting go, and letting go is also loving. There's no right or wrong when it comes to feelings. There's what's possible, and what isn't yet. It's funny. I thought I wanted love, but maybe what I needed most was truth. And I found mine in someone's touch, in another's mistake, and in the pause I learned to cultivate within myself. I rediscovered myself in the small details of routine, in the sound of the shower echoing in the empty apartment, in the extra space in the closet, in the absence of his scent in the hallway. I rediscovered my reflection in the mirror without feeling strange. For the first time in a long time, I accepted Miles's invitation. No rush, no burden, just coffee, just exchanging words, even if none came with a promise. And during that discreet, calm, almost sunny encounter, I was sure of something. I survived the love that wasn't. And still, I was happy to have lived it. That's it. Today, I can look at you from the inside out, a mirror reflected by the experience of someone who was vulnerable, and because of that, strong. If all goes well, this will be just the first of many stories I want to tell here. Some will hurt, others will hug, but all will be real. If you've made it this far, take a deep breath with me. If this touched you in any way, comment below. What was the most truthful moment in your own story? What you hear here is just the beginning. The full, unfiltered stories with all the details you can imagine are available now. Check the link in the description right now. And of course, subscribe to the channel, leave a like to support this project, and share with someone who needs to remember that not every ending has to be happy, as long as it's sincere. See you in the next episode. And until then, take care of yourself. always.